Hi, everybody. Welcome back to English 247, and this is for our class for Thursday, the 30th. And as you know, you have a paper that's coming up, so I'm going to keep today's class short. The paper ideally would be due by the 6th of November. As you know, I have rolling deadlines, but the 6th puts us approximately midway through the semester. So if you don't have a paper in by that point, certainly let me know as to what's going on. And I'm getting a bunch of papers from a bunch of classes right now. So I tell students your paper is going into the queue and I'm evaluating them first come, first serve. And of course, it's also dependent on which class and what their deadlines are. So I will definitely get your paper back to you, and you will definitely have the opportunity to revise it for a higher grade. And you've got up until the ending of the semester in which to do so. So you'll definitely have your paper back before then. And you can utilize my commentary to help you with your second paper, which is going to be very similar to the first paper. The difference is that you would be talking about one of the later texts of the semester. Thus far, your options for paper number one are The Story of an Hour, or Frankenstein, or Persuasion. I had indicated that Jane Eyre might be a possibility, but we're just beginning Jane Eyre. It basically straddles the midpoint of the semester. So I suspect that Jane Eyre might be better saved for your paper number two rather than paper number one. And after Jane Eyre, we'll talk a little bit about Emily Dickinson and incidents in the life of a slave girl. And ultimately, we will end the way we began with Kate Chopin. But this time, we'll be reading a novella by Kate Chopin entitled The Awakening. So, where we are now is putting some closure onto persuasion, and that's going to be today's attendance question, which will be due on Saturday, the 1st. Certainly, if you need additional time, please let me know. As you know, you're not required to respond to your classmates, but you are required to read your classmates' responses and my responses in turn. And for those of you who are still thinking about how to proceed with paper number one, this exercise might help you because it's about important quotes in persuasion. So our attendance question is to identify an interesting quote that you found in persuasion and indicate why you find it to be interesting. And what we are doing next class is talking about Jane Eyre. Now, Jane Eyre is a very long book, and that said, it moves very quickly, so I think you'll find that the pace is very different than Persuasion. It is one of my favorite books of the semester, actually. And it might help to think of Jane Eyre as five separate books. And this is the way that I'm going to approach it when we talk about it. That chapters 1 through 4, approximately, is what I call the Gateshead book. So that's one of the locations of the text. Chapters 5 through 10 is Lowood, another location of the text. Chapters 11 through 27 is Thornfield, yet a third location of the text. Chapters 28 through 35 are about either Morehouse or Marsh End. They are called both in different ways. And that's yet another location. And then the last location of the text, chapters 26 to 38, Ferndean. And this is very much a Gothic romance. We talked a little bit about the Gothic tradition when we were talking about Frankenstein. We'll talk about the Gothic again with Jane Eyre. And you will see a good amount of social and religious commentary. Originally, the text was written under a pseudonym, Currer Bell. And I think it's quite fascinating to read what some of the reviews were, one being from the Quarterly Review by Elizabeth Rigby, who argued that Jane Eyre's author is, quote, blamed for the highest moral offense a novel writer can commit, that of making an unworthy character interesting. The book has been said to be mischievous and vulgar, pandering to the public taste for illegitimate romance. And you might have noticed that as our texts progress, they become more and more explicit about how ultimately gender roles are oppressive and repressive in society. And just think about the idea of Jane, and you should think about the stereotype of a plain Jane, because plain Jane suits Jane very well. She is plain in the sense that she is not beautiful, and we know the importance of appearance after reading Persuasion and Frankenstein. She is an orphan. Once again, we're talking about motherless children, a theme that will be held throughout this semester. She is poor. We know the importance of status after reading Persuasion. And yet she has self respect. In this coming of age novel, is really what it is. And unlike Anne in Persuasion, who is more of a passive observer, Jane is an active participant. And Erica Young, the great feminist scholar, said that Jane may be the first heroine in fiction to know that she needs her own identity more than she needs marriage. Her determination not to relinquish selfhood for love could well belong to a contemporary heroine. And I must agree. And in the preface, one of the things we're told is that conventionality is not morality, self righteousness is not religion. We will see that played out in the novel. Now, if you're looking for a video version of Jane Eyre, there are many, and oftentimes what they do, just because of the length of the text, is that they condense and sometimes even delete entire sections. If you are familiar with the BBC, the British Broadcasting Company, they're usually a pretty reliable source for having literary adaptations. And they have an adaptation from 2006 from Jane Eyre, and it's 4 hours long. And yes, they have made cuts to give you an idea of the length of the text. Not that watching a video adaptation is in any way a substitute, it is a supplement for reading the text. But if this is going to assist you somewhat with Jane Eyre, I know that when Jane Eyre has been done through Hollywood, they oftentimes emphasize the romance between Jane and Rochester, but there are many other elements in this text. So as I said, I didn't want to take too long today. I want you to be thinking about your first paper, and I also want you to get some time so that we can talk about Jane Eyre in greater depth next class. And I leave you with the attendance question about persuasion, identifying an important quote. And again, I encourage you to respond to your peers, much like you would in a face-to-face class, but you're not required to, and you will see that I've been responding to you in turn. So I would have responded to all of you in terms of your last attendance question about your ideas for paper number 1. So I hope you're doing well. I'm doing well, and we will continue on next class talking about Jane Eyre. And if you haven't already done so, I'm hopeful that you would have submitted in a paper. Take care. Bye-bye.